The courtroom was silent except for the sound of my lawyer's footsteps as he approached the judge's bench. I sat there, my hands trembling in my lap, knowing I was about to lose everything. My husband Richard sat across the aisle with his expensive attorney, looking calm and confident. Why wouldn't he be? He had medical experts, financial records, and 12 months of documented proof that I was losing my mind. Your Honor, Richard's attorney began, Mrs. Katherine Morgan is tragically suffering from early-onset dementia. For the safety of the estate her late mother left her, and for her own protection, we're requesting conservatorship be granted to Mr. Morgan, along with an expedited divorce that protects the assets from her impaired decision-making. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and tell the judge it was all lies. But I'd learned over the past year that every time I defended myself, every time I insisted I was fine, Richard would just smile sadly and say, "See? She doesn't even realize how confused she is. That's part of the disease." The judge looked at me with pity. That's what hurt the most, the pity in everyone's eyes when they looked at me. Like I was already gone, already a ghost of who I used to be. "Does Mrs. Morgan wish to present any defense?" the judge asked. My attorney, David Chun, stood up. He was young, maybe too young for a case this complex, but he was the only one who believed me when I said Richard was lying. "Your Honor, before you make your ruling, my client has evidence she'd like to present to the court." Richard's attorney, Gerald Blackwood, immediately objected. "Your Honor, we've already submitted medical evaluations from 2 separate physicians confirming Mrs. Morgan's cognitive decline. What possible evidence could—" "Your Honor," David interrupted, his voice steady despite his youth, "my client has been documenting her daily life for the past 6 months. Video evidence that directly contradicts the medical diagnoses presented by opposing counsel." Richard's face went pale. I watched the color drain from his cheeks as David pulled out a tablet. For the first time in 12 months, I saw fear in my husband's eyes. "Your Honor," David said, walking toward the judge, "may I present Exhibit A, Katherine Morgan's video diary. 183 days of continuous documentation proving she has no cognitive impairment whatsoever." Richard stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You can't. Those videos are." "Sit down, Mr. Morgan," the judge commanded, his interest clearly piqued. David connected the tablet to the courtroom's display system. "Your Honor, what you're about to see will prove that Mrs. Morgan has been the victim of an elaborate fraud designed to steal her inheritance and destroy her credibility. The medical experts who diagnosed her have never actually examined her. The confusion and forgetfulness Mr. Morgan documented were staged and manipulated. And most damning of all, Mr. Morgan had very specific reasons for wanting everyone to believe his wife was losing her mind." The screens flickered to life. My face appeared, sitting in my home office, date stamped 6 months earlier. "My name is Katherine Morgan. Today is January 15th. I am 42 years old. I have no memory problems. I have no confusion. And my husband is trying to convince the world that I have dementia so he can steal my mother's inheritance and leave me with nothing." I watched Richard's attorney frantically whispering to him. I watched the smug confidence drain from Richard's face. And I watched the judge lean forward, suddenly very interested in what my videos might reveal. But let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you how a man I loved for 15 years turned into a monster who tried to erase my mind and steal my life. 15 years ago, I met Richard Morgan at a hospital fundraiser in Chicago. I was 27, working as a pharmaceutical sales representative, and he was a 32-year-old investment banker who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Tall, handsome, successful, charming, everything I thought I wanted. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Expensive dinners, weekend trips to Napa, private box seats at the symphony. He made me feel special, important, like I was the center of his universe. 6 months later, he proposed with a 2-carat diamond ring on the beach in Maui. My mother liked him. That mattered to me more than I want to admit. Mom was a shrewd woman, a successful real estate developer who'd built her fortune from nothing. "He's ambitious," she told me at our engagement party. "Just make sure his ambition includes taking care of you, Katie." I should have paid more attention to that warning. The first 10 years of our marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. Richard worked long hours at his investment firm, climbing the corporate ladder with single-minded determination. I eventually left pharmaceutical sales to get my MBA, then started consulting for medical device companies. We bought a beautiful house in Evanston, took vacations to Europe, hosted dinner parties for Richard's colleagues. We didn't have children. I wanted them, but Richard kept saying, "Not yet. Let me make partner first. Let's get more established." Then it was, "Let's wait until we can really afford to do it right." Then it was, "Maybe we're better off without kids. Think of the freedom we have." Eventually, I stopped asking. My mother passed away 3 years ago after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. She was only 68. It happened so fast, diagnosis in March, gone by July. I was devastated. Mom and I had been close, especially after my father died when I was in college. The reading of her will happen 2 weeks after her funeral. I sat in her attorney's office, still numb with grief, as the lawyer explained that Mom had left her entire estate to me. Her real estate portfolio, her investment accounts, her life insurance. Everything came to approximately $4.8 million. "Your mother was very clear in her instructions," the attorney said, handing me a sealed letter. "She wanted to make sure you'd always be taken care of, Katherine." I opened the letter later that night. Mom's handwriting, familiar and comforting. "My dearest Katie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to watch you use this money to build the life you deserve. I'm leaving everything to you, not to you and Richard. This is your inheritance, your security, your future. Promise me you'll protect it. Promise me you won't let anyone take it from you. I love you always. Mom." At the time, I thought it was sweet but unnecessary. Richard was my husband. He'd never try to take my inheritance. We were partners. We were in love. God, I was so naive. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The change in Richard started about 6 months after Mom died, right around the time the inheritance money finally cleared probate and landed in my separate account, the account my mother's attorney had insisted I open in my name only. Richard came home from work one evening in January, loosening his tie as he walked into our kitchen where I was preparing dinner. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about your mother's money." I looked up from chopping vegetables. "What about it?" "Well, I've been thinking." He poured himself a scotch, something he'd been doing more often lately. "That much money sitting in a simple savings account is foolish. We should invest it properly. I can move it into some of the high-yield portfolios my firm manages." "Mom's attorney actually set up a diversified investment plan," I said. "Conservative but solid returns. It's already invested." Richard's jaw tightened. I noticed, but didn't understand the significance yet. "Katie, no offense to your mother's attorney, but he's not a professional investment manager." "I am. I can double those returns in 2 years. I'm comfortable with the current plan." "You're comfortable," Richard repeated, his tone shifting slightly. "With your money. Your separate account that I have no access to." The way he said it made something cold settle in my stomach. "Richard, it's my inheritance. Mom left it specifically to me." "Right. Your mother didn't trust me enough to leave it to us as a couple." His voice had an edge now. "After 15 years of marriage, she still saw me as an outsider. It's not about trust. It's just, forget it." He downed his scotch and walked out of the kitchen. That was the first crack. The first moment I realized maybe my husband wasn't as comfortable with my inheritance as he'd claimed to be. Things got stranger after that. Small things at first. Things I dismissed or explained away. I'd leave my keys on the kitchen counter, my usual spot, and they'd disappear. I'd find them later in random places. The bathroom drawer, the garage, my coat pocket. "Katie, you're getting so forgetful," Richard would say with concern. "You put them there and don't remember." I'd make plans to have lunch with my friend Sandra, write it on our shared calendar, and Richard would later insist I'd never told him. "Honey, there's nothing on the calendar. Are you sure you wrote it down? Maybe you just thought you did." He started checking up on me constantly, calling me 4 times during his workday. "Just making sure you're okay. You seemed confused this morning. I'm worried about you." I wasn't confused. I was fine. But the more he said I was forgetful, the more I started questioning myself. Then came the incident with my medication. I take levothyroxine for hypothyroidism. I've taken it every morning for 10 years. It's as automatic as breathing. But one morning in February, I couldn't find my pill bottle. I searched everywhere, the bathroom cabinet, the kitchen, my purse, my nightstand. Richard, have you seen my thyroid medication? He looked up from his phone, eyebrows raised in concern. Your thyroid medication? Katie, you stopped taking that 6 months ago. Don't you remember? Your doctor said your levels were normal and took you off it. No, that didn't happen. I would remember that. Sweetheart, I was with you at the appointment. Dr. Kapoor said you didn't need it anymore. He stood up and took my hands. Katie, this is exactly what I've been worried about. You're having memory gaps. Maybe we should schedule an appointment with a specialist. I'm not having memory gaps. I pulled my hands away. I take that medication every day. I need it. Richard's expression shifted to patient concern. Okay, if you're sure you need it, let's call Dr. Kapoor and get a new prescription. But Katie, please, let's also make an appointment with a neurologist. Just to be safe. I called Dr. Kapoor's office the next morning. The receptionist checked my records. Mrs. Morgan, according to our notes, Dr. Kapoor did discontinue your levothyroxine 6 months ago. Your TSH levels were normal. I sat there holding the phone, feeling like I was losing my mind. How could I not remember something that important? However, the receptionist continued, I'm seeing a note here that's odd. It says your husband called 2 weeks ago asking about the status of your prescription. Why would he call about that if you both knew it had been discontinued? That's when I knew. Something was very wrong. Someone had called my doctor's office pretending to authorize discontinuing my medication. Someone had hidden my pill bottle. Someone was gaslighting me about my own medical history. And that someone was my husband. I didn't confront Richard about the medication. Something in my gut told me that would be a mistake. Instead, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed that my forgetfulness only seemed to happen when Richard was around. When I was alone, I was perfectly functional. I remembered everything. But when Richard was home, things mysteriously moved. Plans got confused, and I suddenly couldn't recall conversations we'd supposedly had. I started testing him. I deliberately leave my keys in specific spots, take photos of them with my phone's timestamp, and wait to see if they moved. They did. Every single time Richard was home alone, my keys ended up somewhere else. I scheduled a lunch with my friend Sandra and told Richard about it very clearly, making sure to repeat the date and time. Wednesday at noon, Sandra and I are having lunch at Persephone. He nodded, said he'd remember. I also recorded myself telling him, just as a test. When Wednesday came, he claimed I'd never told him. I showed him the video. Katie, I don't remember you telling me that. He looked genuinely confused, or he was an excellent actor. Are you sure that video is from this week? Maybe you're mixing up your memories. That's when I realized how sophisticated his gaslighting had become. He wasn't just moving my keys, he was questioning my entire perception of reality. But why? That was the question that haunted me. We'd been married 15 years. We had a comfortable life. Yes, we'd grown apart, but marriages do that. Why would Richard want to convince me I was losing my mind? The answer came from an unexpected source, Richard's mistress. Her name was Dr. Natalie fucking Reeves. I discovered her existence purely by accident in March, 2 months after the medication incident. I was looking for a pen in Richard's home office. We'd always had an open-door policy about our workspaces, or so I thought. When I opened his desk drawer, I found a greeting card, the expensive kind from a boutique stationery store. To my darling Richard, thank you for the most incredible weekend in Miami. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Once everything is settled with Kay and the money is transferred, we can finally start our real life together. I love you more than you know. Forever yours, N. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the card. Kay, that was me. Kay whose money needed to be transferred. Kay whose situation needed to be settled. I photographed the card with my phone, put it back exactly where I'd found it, and left Richard's office. Then I sat on our bedroom floor and tried not to vomit. My husband was having an affair. My husband wanted my mother's inheritance. And somehow, these two facts were connected to his campaign to make me believe I had dementia. I hired a private investigator the next day. His name was Marcus Webb, a former Chicago police detective who now ran his own agency. I met him in his office in the Loop, showed him everything I had, the card, the videos of Richard claiming I'd never told him things, the medication incident. "Mrs. Morgan," Marcus said carefully, "what exactly are you asking me to investigate?" "I think my husband is trying to make me look mentally incompetent so he can steal my inheritance. I think he's having an affair with someone whose name starts with N. And I think they're planning something. I need proof." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That's a serious accusation. If you're right, we're not just talking about infidelity. We're talking about fraud, possibly elder abuse statutes, even though you're not elderly, financial exploitation. This could be criminal. Can you help me?" "Yes. But Mrs. Morgan, you need to be careful. If your husband realizes you're investigating him, he might accelerate whatever plan he's working on. Can you continue acting normal at home?" "I've been acting normal for 2 months already. I can keep doing it." Marcus nodded. "Then let's find out what your husband is really up to." Over the next 2 months, Marcus uncovered everything. Dr. Natalie Reeves was a neuropsychologist who specialized in dementia and cognitive disorders. She'd met Richard at a medical investment conference 18 months earlier, 6 months before my mother died. They'd been having an affair ever since. Marcus got photos. Richard and Natalie having dinner at expensive restaurants in Milwaukee where they thought no one would recognize them. Richard and Natalie checking into hotels. Richard and Natalie walking through a furniture store looking at bedroom sets like they were planning a future together. But it got worse. So much worse. Marcus discovered that Natalie had contacts at 2 different medical practices. Through those contacts, she'd arranged for Richard to get medical evaluations for me, evaluations I'd never actually attended. Doctors who'd never met me had signed off on reports saying I'd been examined and showed signs of early-onset dementia. "Look at these dates," Marcus showed me in his office. "This evaluation was supposedly conducted on March 15th. Where were you that day?" I checked my phone calendar. I was at a consulting meeting with a medical device company in St. Louis. I have plane tickets, hotel receipts, an entire paper trail proving I wasn't even in Chicago. "Exactly. These evaluations are fraudulent. Your husband and his mistress have been manufacturing evidence that you're mentally incompetent. But why? What's the end game?" Marcus pulled out another folder. "Conservatorship. If Richard can get a judge to declare you mentally incompetent, he becomes conservator of your estate. That means he controls your inheritance, all $4.8 million of it. He can access it, invest it, spend it, whatever he wants. And once he has control of the money, he can file for divorce and keep most of the assets because they'll be coming led with marital funds under his management." I felt sick. He's stealing my mother's money. He's literally trying to drive me insane so he can steal my inheritance. "I'm afraid it's even more calculated than that," Marcus said grimly. "Look at this." He showed me bank statements. "Your husband has been moving money out of your joint accounts for 6 months. Small amounts that you might not notice immediately. $2,000 here, $5,000 there. It's all being transferred to an offshore account. How much? So far, about $180,000 of your marital assets. But Mrs. Morgan, that's just the joint money. The real target is your inheritance. That's the $4.8 million he's after." I sat there absorbing the full scope of my husband's betrayal. He'd been planning this for over a year. He'd found a mistress who had the professional connections to create fake medical reports. He'd systematically gaslit me to make me doubt my own sanity. He'd stolen our joint money. And now he was positioning to steal my mother's inheritance, the inheritance she'd specifically protected because she worried something exactly like this might happen. "What do I do?" I asked Marcus. "You document everything. And you get ahead of this before he files for conservatorship. What if he already has?" Marcus's expression confirmed my worst fear. "Then we need to move fast." I went home that evening and acted completely normal. I made dinner. I asked Richard about his day. I pretended I didn't know he was a lying, cheating thief who was trying to steal my life. It was the hardest performance of my life. After dinner, Richard poured himself his nightly scotch. He'd been drinking more lately, I realized. Probably the stress of maintaining such an elaborate lie. He settled into his leather chair in our living room, scrolling through his phone. I excused myself to take a bath. Instead, I went to our bedroom and pulled out the small digital recorder Marcus had given me. "Keep this with you," he'd said. "Record everything. We need documentation." I placed the recorder under a decorative pillow on our bedroom bench, positioned where it would capture audio from most of the room, and pressed record. Then I actually did take a bath, letting the hot water soothe my tense muscles while my mind raced with everything Marcus had told me. When I came out of the bathroom in my robe, Richard was in our bedroom on his phone. I froze, but he didn't notice me at first. He was pacing, talking in a low, urgent voice. "Not much longer. I'm telling you, Nat." She's starting to ask questions. "We need to move faster." Pause. I know the doctor said May, but what if she figures it out before then? Another pause. "Because she's not as stupid as we thought, that's why." My heart was pounding, so hard I thought he'd hear it. I stood there in the bathroom doorway, water dripping from my hair, listening to my husband discuss me with his mistress like I was a problem to be solved. "The conservatorship hearing is scheduled for June 1st, Richard continued. "Blackwood says it's a sure thing with the medical reports. Once I have control of her accounts, we can transfer everything within 48 hours. The offshore accounts are ready. The divorce filing is ready. We just need to hold on a little longer." Pause. "I love you too. God, I can't wait until this is over and we can be together properly. No more hiding, no more dealing with Katie's confusion and complaints." He laughed. "Yeah, she really thinks she's fine. That's the beauty of it. She doesn't even realize how confused she is. Classic dementia behavior." I must have made a sound, a gasp or a sob, because Richard suddenly turned around. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, guilt, calculation, and finally landing on concerned sympathy. "Katie, honey, how long have you been standing there?" He put his phone away smoothly. "I was just talking to a colleague about a difficult case. Were you listening?" I had to think fast. If he knew I'd heard, if he knew I understood, he might do something desperate. "I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. I just came out of the bath. Were you on a work call?" I didn't mean to interrupt. His expression softened into relief. No, it's fine. Just wrapping up some details on a client portfolio." He walked over and kissed my forehead. "You look tired, sweetheart. Why don't you get some sleep? I have some emails to finish up." He left the bedroom. I stood there shaking, grateful he couldn't see my face, grateful he still thought I was the confused, forgetful wife he'd been creating. I retrieved the recorder from under the pillow. I had him admitting to the conservatorship plan, the offshore accounts, the divorce filing, all of it. But I needed more. Marcus had been clear. The more evidence you have, the stronger your case. Don't just prove he's planning to steal from you. Prove how he's doing it. Prove who's helping him. Prove every detail. So I started recording myself. Every single day. January 15th, 2024. I bought a small camera and set it up in my home office. Every morning, I sat down and documented my day, what I was planning to do, what I'd done the previous day, complex information I needed to remember. I solved crossword puzzles on camera. I read newspaper articles and summarized them. I cooked complicated recipes from memory. I demonstrated that I was perfectly cognitively functional. My name is Katherine Morgan. Today is January 15th, 2024. I am 42 years old. Yesterday, I had a consultation with MedTech Solutions about their new cardiac monitoring device. I can tell you every detail of the specifications they want to market. Last night, I made cocoa vin from memory, a recipe with 12 ingredients and 6 steps. This morning, I completed the Sunday New York Times crossword puzzle in under 30 minutes. I have no memory problems. I have no confusion. And my husband is trying to convince the world that I have dementia so he can steal my mother's inheritance and leave me with nothing. Every day, the same routine. Documenting my capabilities. Documenting Richard's gaslighting. Documenting the little ways he tried to undermine my confidence and make me doubt reality. I captured him on hidden camera moving my keys, and then later asking me with fake concern, "Katie, where did you put your keys? You really need to start keeping track of your things." I recorded him deleting appointments from our shared calendar and then insisting I'd never told him about them. I documented every moment of lucidity, every conversation, every activity that proved I was completely mentally sound. And slowly, I watched Richard's plan unfold with growing horror. In May, Richard's attorney, Gerald Blackwood, served me with papers. Petition for conservatorship. He was formally asking a court to declare me mentally incompetent and award him control of my estate. The petition was devastating in its detail. It cited the fake medical evaluations. It included a sworn statement from Richard describing my progressive cognitive decline over the past year, how I forgot conversations, lost items, became confused and disoriented, couldn't manage daily tasks without supervision. It was all lies. Elaborate, documented lies. But it looked convincing. Richard had been methodical. He had medical reports from 2 separate doctors. He had a care journal. He kept documenting my supposed symptoms. He even had statements from some of our neighbors saying they'd noticed I seemed not quite myself lately. I learned later that Richard had gone around telling everyone who would listen that I was developing early-onset dementia. Poor Richard, everyone said. What a devoted husband, taking care of his sick wife. How tragic for both of them. The only person who knew the truth was my attorney, David Chun. I'd hired David in March after Marcus recommended him. He's young, but he's brilliant, Marcus had said. And he's not afraid to take on difficult cases. David was 31, fresh-faced, and had a reputation for fighting conservatorship abuse. When I'd first met with him and explained what Richard was doing, he'd been furious. This is financial elder abuse, even though you're not elderly, David had said. This is fraud. This is gaslighting. And if we can prove it, your husband is going to face serious consequences. Can we prove it? With the recordings you've been making? With Marcus's investigation? Yes. But Mrs. Morgan, I have to warn you, conservatorship hearings are hard to win for the defendant. The burden of proof is on you to prove you're competent, not on him to prove you're not. It's a backward system that's designed to protect vulnerable people, but it also makes it easy to abuse. So what do? David had smiled. We let him think he's winning right up until the moment we destroy him. That's exactly what we did. Through May, I played the part of the confused, declining wife. I let Richard think his plan was working. I acted forgetful when he was around, not enough to be obviously faking, but enough to make him confident. Meanwhile, I continue my daily recordings. 183 days of video evidence, proving I was completely mentally sound. Marcus continued his investigation. He got financial records, showing the money transfers. He got photos of Richard and Natalie together. He even managed to get a recording of Natalie bragging to a friend about her brilliant investment banker boyfriend who's about to be single and very wealthy. And I waited. I waited for the conservatorship hearing. I waited for my chance to expose Richard and Natalie for the frauds they were. The night before the hearing, Richard came home with champagne. He was in a good mood, the best mood I'd seen him in for months. What are we celebrating? I asked, even though I knew. Nothing specific, he said, pouring 2 glasses. I just feel like things are finally falling into place, you know? Life is good. Life was good for him anyway. In less than 24 hours, he thought he'd have control of my inheritance. He thought he'd won. I raised my glass. To the future. To the future, Richard echoed, clinking his glass against mine. Neither of us knew that the future he was imagining, him and Natalie living off my mother's money, was about to go up in flames. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. The morning of June 1st dawned bright and clear. A beautiful late spring day in Chicago. I woke up early, before Richard, and went through my morning routine mechanically. Shower, hair, makeup, the navy blue suit that made me look professional and credible. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked tired. I was tired. 6 months of pretending to be confused. 6 months of documenting my competence. 6 months of knowing my husband was betraying me in the worst possible way. It had taken a toll. But today was the day it ended. Richard was cheerful at breakfast. He actually hummed while making his coffee. He thought today was the day he won. The day he got control of my inheritance. The day his plan finally paid off. "Ready for today?" he asked, kissing my forehead with what appeared to be genuine affection. "I know court proceedings are stressful, Katie, but this is really for the best. Once we have conservatorship established, you won't have to worry about managing all that complicated financial stuff anymore. I'll take care of everything." I nodded, playing my part. "I guess. I still don't understand why we need to do this." "I know you don't, sweetheart. That's part of the problem." He squeezed my shoulder. "But I promise, after today, everything will be easier." We drove to the courthouse, separately, Richard in his BMW, me meeting David at his office first to go over our strategy, one final time. "Do you have the recordings?" David asked. I held up a small hard drive. "Every day for 6 months. 183 videos. And you're prepared for what's going to happen? Richard's attorney is going to be aggressive. He's going to try to make you look confused and disoriented on the stand." "Let him try." David smiled. "That's what I like to hear. One more thing. Marcus will be there with the financial evidence and the investigation results. The moment we discredit the medical testimony, we're going to introduce evidence of fraud. This isn't just about stopping the conservatorship, Mrs. Morgan. This is about making sure Richard faces consequences." "Good." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a woman in her early 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I'd researched her. She was known for being fair but tough, and she didn't tolerate anyone trying to manipulate her court. Richard sat with his attorney, Gerald Blackwood. Both men looked confident and relaxed. Why wouldn't they be? They had medical reports, care journals, witness statements. They thought they had an airtight case. What they didn't know was that their house of cards was about to collapse. Gerald Blackwood went first. He was a skilled attorney, I had to give him that. He presented Richard's case with polished professionalism. "Your Honor, we're here today because Mr. Richard Morgan is trying to do the right thing for his wife of 15 years. Over the past year, Katherine Morgan has been experiencing progressive cognitive decline consistent with early-onset dementia. Despite his best efforts to care for her at home, Mr. Morgan has reached the point where he believes professional oversight of her affairs is necessary for her own protection." Blackwood presented the fake medical evaluations. Dr. Gerald Steinberg, a board-certified neurologist, examined Mrs. Morgan and documented significant memory impairment, confusion, and disorientation. Independently, Dr. Amy Chen, a neuropsychologist, conducted cognitive testing and reached the same conclusion. He showed the care journal Richard had kept. Mr. Morgan has documented dozens of incidents over the past year. Mrs. Morgan forgetting where she placed items. Mrs. Morgan unable to recall conversations that happened hours earlier. Mrs. Morgan becoming confused while driving and getting lost in her own neighborhood. All lies. Elaborate, detailed lies. "Your Honor, this is a tragic situation. Mr. Morgan loves his wife deeply. But love isn't enough. Mrs. Morgan has inherited a substantial estate from her late mother, approximately $4.8 million. Without proper oversight, there's a real risk that she could make impulsive or confused financial decisions that would jeopardize her future security. Mr. Morgan is asking this court to grant him conservatorship so he can protect his wife and her assets." Judge Morrison looked at me. "Mrs. Morgan, do you understand why you're here today?" Before I could answer, Blackwood jumped in. "Your Honor, Mrs. Morgan often appears lucid in short interactions. That's characteristic of early-stage dementia. But sustained conversation and complex decision-making reveal her impairment." "Mr. Blackwood, I asked Mrs. Morgan, not you," the judge said sharply. She looked at me again. "Mrs. Morgan?" "Yes, Your Honor. I understand perfectly. My husband is trying to steal my inheritance by convincing this court that I'm mentally incompetent. I'm not. I never have been. And I have proof." Richard's face went pale. Blackwood stood up quickly. "Your Honor, this is exactly the kind of confused reasoning we're talking about. Mrs. Morgan is unable to recognize her own cognitive decline. She believes there's some conspiracy against her." "Your Honor!" David stood up, his voice calm but firm. "Before this court makes any ruling, the defense requests permission to present evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Morgan's petition. We have video documentation spanning 6 months that proves Mrs. Morgan has no cognitive impairment whatsoever. Video documentation? Judge Morrison looked interested. What kind of video documentation? Mrs. Morgan has been recording herself daily since January 15th of this year. 183 days of continuous evidence showing her performing complex cognitive tasks, demonstrating perfect memory recall, and documenting the various ways her husband has been gaslighting her to manufacture symptoms of dementia. Blackwood was on his feet. Your Honor, this is absurd. We're not going to sit here and watch 6 months of home videos. Actually, Mr. Blackwood, that's exactly what we're going to do, Judge Morrison said. I want to see this evidence. Mr. Chun, how long will this take? I've prepared a compilation, Your Honor. Approximately 45 minutes. But if you want to see the full archive, we have every day available. Let's start with your compilation. David connected his laptop to the courtroom display system. I watched Richard's reaction carefully. He was whispering urgently to Blackwood. Both men looked worried now. The video began. My face appeared on the screen, sitting in my home office. My name is Katherine Morgan. Today is January 15th, 2024. I am 42 years old. I have no memory problems. I have no confusion. And my husband is trying to convince the world that I have dementia so he can steal my mother's inheritance and leave me with nothing. For the next 45 minutes, the court watched me, completing complex crossword puzzles and explaining my reasoning for each answer, reading detailed medical journal articles and summarizing them accurately, cooking complicated recipes from memory, listing ingredients and steps, discussing current events with specific dates, names, and details, demonstrating perfect recall of conversations I'd had days or weeks earlier, working through financial calculations and investment scenarios, and most damaging of all, showing clips of Richard gaslighting me, moving my keys and then asking with fake concern where I'd put them, deleting calendar appointments and claiming I'd never told him about them, pretending conversations never happened when I could prove they had. The courtroom was silent except for the audio from my videos. Richard had slumped in his chair, his face ashen. Blackwood was frantically taking notes, trying to figure out how to counter this. When the video ended, Judge Morrison sat back in her chair. Mr. Blackwood, I'm very interested in your response to what we just saw. Your Honor, these videos don't prove anything. Anyone can appear lucid on camera. The medical evaluations are from qualified professionals who... Let me stop you there, David said, standing up. Your Honor, we'd like to call those medical evaluations into question. Can you tell me, Mr. Blackwood, when Dr. Steinberg examined Mrs. Morgan? Blackwood shuffled through his papers. March 15th, 2024. David pulled out a folder. Your Honor, I have here plane tickets, hotel receipts, and meeting confirmations proving that Mrs. Morgan was in St. Louis on March 15th, 2024. She was consulting with a medical device company. She couldn't have been examined by Dr. Steinberg in Chicago because she wasn't in Chicago. The judge's expression hardened. Mr. Blackwood, there must be some mistake in the date. And Dr. Chen's evaluation? David pressed. According to your filing, that happened on April 3rd, 2024. Your Honor, on April 3rd, Mrs. Morgan was having lunch with 3 friends at a restaurant in Evanston. We have credit card receipts, photos posted on social media, and all 3 friends are willing to testify. She couldn't have been at a neuropsychological evaluation at the same time. What are you suggesting, Mr. Chun? The judge asked, though her tone suggested she knew exactly what David was suggesting. I'm suggesting that these medical evaluations never happened, Your Honor. Mrs. Morgan was never examined by either doctor. Someone created fraudulent medical reports to support this conservatorship petition. And we know who that someone is. Richard was on his feet. That's ridiculous. Those are legitimate medical reports from real doctors. I arranged those appointments. I took my wife to them. She just doesn't remember because of her memory problems. Sit down, Mr. Morgan, the judge commanded. Mr. Chun, do you have evidence to support your fraud allegation? We do, Your Honor. But first, I'd like to introduce someone. David gestured to the back of the courtroom. Dr. Natalie Reeves, would you please step forward? A woman I'd never met in person, but had seen in dozens of Marcus's surveillance photos, stood up from the gallery. She was beautiful in a cold, polished way, blonde hair pulled back, expensive suit, the kind of woman who knew she was attractive and used it. She looked terrified. "Dr. Reeves," David said pleasantly, "you're a neuropsychologist, correct?" Yes, but I don't see why I'm being asked to." "Your Honor, Dr. Reeves has connections to both Dr. Steinberg and Dr. Chen. She worked with Dr. Steinberg at Northwestern Hospital, and she shares an office building with Dr. Chen's practice. We believe Dr. Reeves was the intermediary who arranged for the fraudulent medical reports." "That's a serious accusation," Judge Morrison said. "It is," David agreed, "and we can prove it. Your Honor, we also have evidence that Dr. Reeves has been engaged in a romantic relationship with Richard Morgan for approximately 18 months. She has a vested interest in helping him gain control of Mrs. Morgan's inheritance." The courtroom erupted. Blackwood was shouting objections. Richard was trying to get to the back of the courtroom where Natalie stood. The judge was banging her gavel. "Order! Everyone sit down right now." David pulled out his phone and connected it to the display system. "Your Honor, may I present evidence from our private investigator showing Mr. Morgan and Dr. Reeves together over the past 18 months? Photos appeared on the screen. Richard and Natalie at restaurants. Richard and Natalie at hotels. Richard and Natalie looking at furniture together like a couple planning their future. And then the video started. The recording I'd made in my bedroom of Richard on the phone with Natalie. Not much longer. "I'm telling you, Nat," she's starting to ask questions. "We need to move faster. I know the doctor said May, but what if she figures it out before then? Because she's not as stupid as we thought, that's why. The conservatorship hearing is scheduled for June 1st. Blackwood says it's a sure thing with the medical reports. Once I have control of her accounts, we can transfer everything within 48 hours. The offshore accounts are ready. The divorce filing is ready. We just need to hold on a little longer. I love you too. God, I can't wait until this is over and we can be together properly. No more hiding. No more dealing with Katie's confusion and complaints. Yeah, she really thinks she's fine. That's the beauty of it. She doesn't even realize how confused she is. Classic dementia behavior. The courtroom was dead silent when the recording ended. Richard had his head in his hands. Natalie was crying. Blackwood looked like he might throw up. Judge Morrison's face was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen. Pure, cold fury. "Mr. Morgan, stand up." Richard stood on shaking legs. "Mr. Blackwood, I assume you had no knowledge of this conspiracy?" "None, Your Honor." "I swear I had no idea." "Then you're merely incompetent, rather than criminal." "Small comfort." She turned to Richard. "Mr. Morgan, you came into my courtroom with fraudulent medical evidence. You attempted to have your wife declared incompetent so you could steal her inheritance. You engaged in a conspiracy with your mistress to defraud both your wife and this court. Your Honor, I can explain. You will have plenty of opportunity to explain. To the police." She looked at the bailiff. "Officer, please detain Mr. Morgan and Dr. Reeves. I'm referring this matter to the state's attorney for prosecution, fraud, forgery, attempted financial exploitation. They can determine the full list of charges." "You can't do this," Richard shouted as the bailiff approached him with handcuffs. "I have rights." "You have the right to remain silent," the bailiff said, cuffing Richard's hands behind his back. "I suggest you use it." Natalie was sobbing as another officer handcuffed her. "He told me she really was sick. He said we were helping her. I didn't know it was fraud." "Then you're a fool," Judge Morrison said coldly. "Officers, remove them both." I watched my husband of 15 years being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired and sad. Sad for the years wasted. Sad for the man I'd thought I married, but who had never really existed. "Mrs. Morgan," the judge said gently, and I looked up at her. "The conservatorship petition is denied. You are clearly in full possession of your mental faculties. In fact, I'd say you're one of the sharpest people I've encountered. What you did, documenting everything, building your case, protecting yourself, that took intelligence and courage. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm also issuing a restraining order against Mr. Morgan. He is not to contact you, come near you, or make any attempt to access your financial accounts. I'm freezing all marital assets pending a full investigation into where your joint funds went. And Mrs. Morgan. Yes, Your Honor. I suggest you file for divorce immediately. And I suggest you sue for fraud. What your husband did to you, trying to make you believe you were losing your mind, that's one of the cruelest forms of abuse I've ever seen. Make sure he pays for it. I will, Your Honor. The news coverage was immediate and brutal. Investment banker and mistress arrested for conservatorship fraud scheme ran in the Chicago Tribune the next morning. By afternoon, it had gone national. Richard's firm fired him within 24 hours. They released a statement saying they were shocked and appalled by his criminal behavior and were cooperating fully with authorities. The Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation launched an investigation into Dr. Natalie Reeves. Within a week, her psychology license was suspended pending a full disciplinary hearing. Dr. Steinberg and Dr. Chen, the doctors who'd signed off on the fraudulent evaluations, were also under investigation. Gerald Blackwood, Richard's attorney, was facing an ethics complaint with the state bar for not doing his due diligence on the medical evidence. He'd never actually verified that the evaluations happened, never insisted on examining me himself, never questioned why a woman who appeared perfectly lucid in every interaction supposedly had severe dementia. Marcus Webb's investigation revealed the full scope of Richard's financial crimes. He'd stolen $180,000 from our joint accounts. He'd set up 3 offshore accounts in preparation for transferring my inheritance. He'd even taken out credit cards in my name, fraud on top of fraud. The state's attorney charged Richard with felony fraud, forgery, attempted financial exploitation, and identity theft. Natalie was charged as an accomplice. The prosecutors were pushing for significant prison time. But the thing that gave me the most satisfaction? The prosecutors seized the greeting card I'd found in Richard's desk, the one from Natalie talking about once everything is settled with Kay and the money is transferred. That card, along with the recording of Richard's phone call, proved premeditation. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a calculated, long-term conspiracy. Richard tried to make a deal. His new attorney, not Blackwood, who wanted nothing to do with him anymore, approached David about settlement negotiations. Mr. Morgan is willing to give Mrs. Morgan full ownership of all marital assets in exchange for her not pursuing civil litigation, the attorney said. David looked at me. I shook my head. No deal, David told them. Mrs. Morgan wants her day in civil court. She wants a jury to hear what your client did to her. And she wants every penny she's entitled to, plus damages for emotional distress, plus punitive damages for fraud. You're making a mistake, Richard's attorney warned. If this goes to trial, the details are going to be public. Is your client really ready for the world to know? The world already knows, I said. It's been in every newspaper. The only person who should be embarrassed is Richard. I'm the victim here, and I'm not hiding anymore. The civil trial happened in October, 4 months after the conservatorship hearing. It took the jury 3 hours to award me full ownership of all marital assets, including our house, cars, and savings, $320,000 total after accounting for the money Richard had stolen. The return of the $180,000 Richard had transferred to offshore accounts. $500,000 in compensatory damages for emotional distress. $2 million in punitive damages. Richard didn't have $2 million, but he had a 401k, an investment portfolio his firm hadn't seized, and some family money. Over the next several years, I'd be collecting every penny. The criminal trial was in November. Richard pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. He got 6 years in federal prison. Natalie, who cooperated with prosecutors and testified against Richard, got 3 years. 6 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough for what he tried to do to me. But it was something. The divorce was finalized in December. I kept the house Richard had thought he'd sell to fund his new life with Natalie. I kept every cent of my mother's inheritance, the $4.8 million he tried so hard to steal. I kept all the marital assets the jury had awarded me. Richard got exactly what he deserved. Nothing. Well, not nothing. He got a prison sentence, a destroyed reputation, and the knowledge that his own greed and cruelty had cost him everything. The day the divorce was final, I went to my mother's grave. I hadn't been there since her funeral 3 years earlier. It hurt too much. But that day, I needed to tell her something. You were right, Mom, I said, kneeling by her headstone. You told me to protect my inheritance. You warned me, in that letter, not to let anyone take it from me. I almost didn't listen. I almost trusted Richard with it. But you knew. You knew I needed to keep it separate, keep it safe, keep it mine. The wind rustled through the trees in the cemetery. I like to imagine it was Mom telling me she was proud. I protected it, Mom. I protected everything you left me. And I protected myself. I didn't let him destroy me. I didn't let him win. I stood up, wiping tears from my eyes. I love you, Mom. Thank you for watching out for me, even after you were gone. I sold the house in Evanston. Too many bad memories. I bought a smaller but beautiful condo in Lincoln Park, overlooking the lake. It's just mine. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every single thing in it mine. Not ours. Mine. I expanded my consulting business. Turns out, being the woman who outsmarted her con artist husband made me somewhat famous in certain circles. Companies wanted to work with me. The woman who was smart enough, careful enough, strategic enough to document everything and build an airtight case against fraud. My business tripled within 6 months. But the best part, the absolute best part, was the messages I started receiving. Women from all over the country reached out to me after my story went national. Women who were being gaslit by their husbands. Women who were being told they were crazy, forgetful, incompetent. Women who were being manipulated and abused and made to doubt their own reality. I helped them. I told them what to do. Document everything. Record yourself daily. Prove your competence. Build your case. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself. 3 women sent me thank you messages after using my strategy to stop conservatorship attempts against them. 2 women escaped abusive marriages with evidence that protected them in divorce court. 1 woman used my tactics to prove her husband was trying to steal her business. That's my legacy from this nightmare. Not the money I kept or the victory in court, but the women I helped by sharing what happened to me. It's been 2 years since that June morning in Judge Morrison's courtroom. 2 years since I watched Richard get arrested for trying to steal my inheritance and destroy my mind. I'm 44 now. My consulting business is thriving. My condo is beautiful. My life is peaceful in a way it never was during my marriage, even during the good years. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet. I'm not ready for serious, and I might never be. But I've been on a few dates with a nice man named Tom who's a professor at Northwestern. He makes me laugh. He respects my boundaries. He thinks my story of exposing Richard is the most badass thing I've ever heard. We'll see where it goes. The 183 videos I recorded during those 6 months are on a hard drive in my safe deposit box. Sometimes I think about deleting them. They're evidence of one of the worst periods of my life. They're a reminder of how my husband betrayed me. But they're also proof of my strength. Proof that when someone tried to erase me, to make me doubt my own mind, to steal everything my mother left me, I fought back. And I won. So I keep them. I see Richard's attorney, Gerald Blackwood, occasionally. He lost his law license for a year for his role in the conservatorship case, though he was allowed to reapply. I heard he's working as a paralegal now. I almost feel sorry for him. He was Richard's pawn as much as I was. Almost. Dr. Natalie Reeves was released from prison last month after serving 2 years of her 3-year sentence. I heard she moved to Florida and is working as a life coach. Not a psychologist anymore. Her license was permanently revoked. I hope she learned something from what happened. I hope she understands that greed and selfishness have consequences. But honestly, I don't spend much time thinking about her. Richard has 4 more years in federal prison. He'll be 53 when he gets out. I'll be 48. He'll have lost some of the best years of his life sitting in a cell thinking about the fortune he almost stole. Sometimes I wonder if he regrets it. If he lies awake at night wishing he'd just been honest, wishing he'd asked for a divorce instead of trying to drive me insane, wishing he'd been a better person. Probably not. Men like Richard don't think they did anything wrong. They think they were just unlucky enough to get caught. But I know the truth. Richard didn't get caught because he was unlucky. He got caught because he underestimated me. He thought I was weak. He thought I was naive. He thought I wouldn't notice what he was doing, and even if I did notice, I wouldn't be smart enough or strong enough to stop him. He was wrong. Richard, if you're somehow watching this from prison, I want you to know something. I don't hate you. I'm not consumed with anger or bitterness. I don't think about you every day. I don't dream about you at night. You're just nothing to me now. A mistake I made 15 years ago. A lesson I learned about trusting the wrong person. You tried to steal my mother's inheritance. You tried to make me believe I was losing my mind. You tried to take everything from me, my money, my sanity, my freedom, my dignity. But you failed. I kept my inheritance. I proved I was sane. I'm free, successful, and happy. And you're in prison, broke and disgraced. You know what the best part is? You did this to yourself. Every step of your plan, the gaslighting, the affair with Natalie, the fake medical reports, the offshore accounts, every single piece of your conspiracy was your choice. You weren't forced into this. You weren't desperate. You were just greedy and cruel. And now you're paying for it. I hope those 4 years in prison give you time to think about what you lost. You had a wife who loved you. You had a comfortable life. You had enough money, not millions, but enough. You could have asked for a divorce. You could have been honest. You could have been decent. Instead, you chose to be a monster. Our daughter, the one we never had because you kept saying, "Not yet," she would have been 13 now. Thank God we never brought a child into this mess. Thank God there's no kid who has to visit their father in prison and wonder why Daddy tried to steal from Mommy. I'm living proof that women are stronger than men like you think we are. I'm living proof that gaslighting doesn't work when your victim is smart enough to document everything. I'm living proof that truth wins. You traded everything, your freedom, your reputation, your future, for nothing. You didn't get my mother's money. You didn't get me declared incompetent. You didn't get your new life with Natalie. You got exactly what you deserved. And me, I got my life back. I got my confidence back. I got my mother's inheritance, just like she wanted. I got justice. I won. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for showing me what I'm capable of. Thank you for teaching me to trust my instincts. Thank you for making me strong. Thank you for failing. I'm 44 years old. I'm successful. I'm free. I'm happy. And you're in a cell, counting down the days until you're released into a world that knows exactly what you tried to do. That's justice. That's victory. That's the end of our story. Goodbye, Richard. I hope the next 4 years give you time to become a better person. But honestly, I don't care either way. Because my life, the life you tried to destroy, is beautiful now. And you're not part of it anymore. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.